We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam. So who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football, I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson. We are previewing all of the Week 15 NFL action. Of course, the Thursday Night Football game. We previewed it yesterday. The Chiefs-Chargers game. Previewed that. We looked back at Monday Night Football, that Rams-Cardinals game. So go check out the Wednesday podcast if you haven't already. Are you ready to go? Get into some Week 15 stuff?
Yeah.
Giveaways. You want to get that out of the way really quickly here? We can give stuff away.
Follow the PFF podcast Twitter account at PFF NFL Pod. I will stuff this book in the mail to somebody, a random follower, soon. And as you see there, the pinned tweet is our new charity drive. We don't yet know what the forfeit, what the punishment, what the thing we're going to do, the theme is. But when tornadoes rolled through like a town not far away, we decided that was a good cause to start raising some money for. So the GoFundMe is up there. We'll figure out what we're going to do to justify the money at a later date, but you guys are all awesome for already starting to raise some money. We're 600, I think, plus already raised for that. That will be going to relief of the tornado stuff.
Yeah, appreciate it. Everybody that's already donated, we'll tweet that out again from the podcast Twitter account and from our personal accounts as well.
It's the pinned tweet from my account and for the podcast account, so you should be able to find it pretty easily.
I'll put my own specialized tweet out there today. It's going to happen today. So thanks to everybody for that. And again, promo code PFF, NFL Pod for your 25% off.
Yep.
Send Sam that screenshot.
DM me or an email address that you use to sign up, and I will send somebody a jersey.
All right, you ready to get into the games?
Let's go.
All right, Week 15. It's COVID week.
Yes, it's COVID week. Also, it's Urban Meyer fired week.
Oh, yeah, we got to touch on Urban Meyer. So we've decided this is why the PFF NFL Daily was birthed. This is why. So that we don't have to spend 10 minutes talking about the Urban Meyer regime. I think we should do the top 20.
So we can keep this podcast nice and tight at 2.5 hours.
Yes, or else we'd be here for 6 hours. We're going to do, I think that we should title it the top 20 worst moments of Urban Meyer's 13-week tenure in Jacksonville.
Top 20, yeah.
Is that a good title?
Yeah.
So Urban Meyer out with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Happened in the wee hours of the morning, about 1 a.m.
Did they think nobody would notice if they dropped it at 1 a.m.? Like the Friday news dump?
They just did it after the AEW show, right? After, like they prioritized Tony Khan, the head booker and owner of AEW. You got to go through the show. You finish the show, and then at the end,
let's leave the news cycle to AEW. Then we can drop this.
Yes, and then you drop the Urban Meyer thing. Urban Meyer, former AEW
superstar.
Superstar, yes, superstar. Former AEW superstar Urban Meyer has been fired.
That might be the highlight of his career.
Yeah,
his Jacksonville career. That was probably it.
One of the best things he did in Jacksonville. That was probably the best thing he did in Jacksonville. Yeah. We actually look at this. This is unbelievable.
It's the best thing he did, and look at him. He just stood there and got out of the way. That should have been a lesson, really.
He's on Chris Jericho's side here. You got Charlie Strong firing a football to Chris Jericho, so
Herb
he can
didn't
fire
even do
it
that.
Off. Whoever. No, Herb just stood there.
That's what I'm saying.
Then
maybe I handed him a laptop. There you go.
Maybe that laptop had all the good plays in it. Maybe that's what happened. The laptop
that had the plan for the season on it. That explains everything.
Yes, the laptop that he gave Chris Jericho had all the good stuff on it, and then it got destroyed.
So anyway, we're not going to be talking.
We're not talking Urban Meyer until we talk.
Till later.
About 2.5 hours from now, we'll preview the Jaguars-Texans game. and we'll touch on it a little bit. But yeah, tomorrow mornings, PFF NFL Daily, Friday mornings, we'll touch on Urban and that whole situation in Jacksonville. But for now, let's get to the good games for Week 15. One of the games of the week here, New England Patriots at the Indianapolis Colts. It's a Saturday night game. We got 2 Saturday games. They're back here, Sam. They're making us work an extra day.
Yeah.
Watching some Saturday games. But you got a 9-4 Patriots team. Colts are at 7-6. Patriots coming off of a bye here. What are you looking for in this Patriots-Colts game?
2 Saturday games, theoretically. We'll wait to see if the Browns Raiders one holds up with all the COVID cases that are existing at the moment. This game is interesting because these two teams feel very much like mirror images of each other. You know, they have a sort of power style of offense that most teams don't have in today's NFL. It feels like they both have quarterbacks that you don't 100% trust, even though we've said before that Carson Wentz has played a very clean brand of football outside of 2 games, but last season is all too real. You know, it's all too visible in the rearview mirror. You know the specter of what can happen if Carson Wentz just has one of those nightmares. And Mac Jones, obviously, for as good as he's been, is a rookie. So this is kind of interesting to me that New England has zagged while everybody else has zigged, or the opposite, and they've kind of constructed this power team and are able to sort of run over teams like Buffalo and beat these more finesse style of opposition. The Colts are kind of the same thing, whether by design or by accident, and now we get to see 2 of these teams face off.
Yeah, it is. It's a great matchup. Actually, both teams coming off a bye. The Colts also were on a bye. The number that stands out to me is what New England's defense has done. The number 1 coverage grade in the NFL. So they've scored a lot of points. They've run the ball. Mac Jones has played a good brand of football, efficient and accurate and all that stuff. But Bill Belichick continues to get the most out of his players. Remember, Kyle Van Noy? He pulled it. Kyle Van Noy has pulled a Jamie Collins. He has, he left, came back, and played good football.
What the hell is that? These guys that cannot survive outside of New England, even within New England, coaching tree defenses.
I don't know. I don't really know.
Both those guys were in the same system, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
Kyle Van Noy went to Miami, where Brian Flores is the head coach, and Jamie Collins was in Detroit, where Matt Patricia was the head coach, both of whom were defensive coordinators for that player in his previous stint in New England, where he was good. Why? What the hell?
The fascinating thing about Van Noy, too, a true hybrid player. I mean, we talk about Micah Parsons. Van Noy was one of those guys who kind of went the other way. Like, was an edge rusher coming out of college, became more of a traditional linebacker. The last time he had great success in New England, he was more of a pure pass rusher. He rarely dropped into coverage. This year, he's dropped into coverage more than he's rushed the passer. So Belichick just knows how to press the right buttons with whatever players he has and put them in the right position to succeed. Van Noy's got an 83 coverage grade. The top coverage grade on their team is Adrian Phillips, another guy that's just a bit of a, I don't want to say reclamation project. Like, he was a pretty good player for the Chargers, and the Patriots have turned him into a very good player this year. You're getting good play out of Devin McCourty and rookie safety Kyle Duggar, and they've just done a really nice job in the back 7 again. And I think that's one of the stories of the season, because the Patriots offense wasn't the same last year without Tom Brady and transition into Cam Newton, but they weren't the same defense last year either. They're back on track there. It'll be more difficult to defend in the Dome than it is 50-mile-an-hour winds in Buffalo, but New England's defense and their ability to control the ball offensively is what makes them so dangerous.
These are also 2 of the top 3 teams. We said this, I think, yesterday, in terms of turnovers forced. Like, only the Dallas Cowboys has forced more turnovers than both these teams. The Colts are fascinating because, again, Wentz has had 2 games where he's imploded and had a bunch of turnover-worthy plays. Now, one of them was in the whatever the hell that thing was called, the rainstorm, the river.
The river rain.
There's some kind of river, atmospheric river or some ridiculous phrase. So you can, if you're of the ilk that you throw out particular games, I would throw that one out. I would say, look, that weather was mad. Get rid of it. Bin it.
You are of that ilk.
Yeah, but then the next week he had one of those games where there wasn't really weather issues. He just imploded. So, he's shown that he will do that still. It's there. Like, lurking on the horizon is a game where Carson Wentz is just going to start heaving the ball to the opposition. And Bill Belichick has a history of being able to prompt that out of quarterbacks. So that's always there. But when he hasn't done that, he really hasn't put the ball in harm's way at all this season. He's got one of the best turnover-worthy play rates in the league with those 2 games. You take those out, and he's right up there with Tom Brady as like the cleanest quarterback in the league in terms of putting the ball at risk. So, if he's able to do that and fight off that Patriots defense that's caused a lot of turnovers, the Colts are going to be really hard to stop on offense. Similarly, the other side, the Colts are like masters at this point of that peanut punch forced fumble. Like Darius Leonard has, I think, 5 of those this season. They've got a bunch of guys that are just really good at punching the ball out and getting it out. And the Patriots offense, it's very yards after the catch based. They are Mac Jones getting the ball out of his hands quickly, getting it in the hands of receivers, which is great, letting them do the work. But every one of those plays now is exposing those guys to the risk of, a Darius Leonard or a Kenny Moore, whoever it is, getting in there with a punch and ripping that ball out and causing fumbles.
Good point, Sam. All good stuff. I think the one other thing to keep an eye on offensively for the Colts, I can't remember if I mentioned this, but they're 3rd in the league in points per game, 28.5 points per game for the Indianapolis Colts. They're favored, by the way, by 2.5 in this game. The Colts are favored here at home by 2.5. I forgot to tweet this thing out. My fault. I forgot to tweet the podcast. Start over. Forgot to tweet it out.
Do that.
Get
We're
everybody
live.
Here. Go tweet it out for everybody. So what with the Colts offensively, what's Belichick going to take away? Michael Pittman has emerged as their true number 1. I could see him garnering extra attention. Belichick likes to generally add extra attention to the middle of the field. We've seen tight end Mo Alley Cox be a big target. We've seen Jack Doyle be targeted a ton. I wonder if this is a Naheem Hines type of game, because if you're looking at mismatches, getting a shifty running back like a Hines on those bigger Patriots linebackers could be the way to go for the Colts here. Colts have been kind of hit or miss defensively. They were rough early in the season, but they've had some good games as well, and they're going to have to probably add some extra resources to stop the run, and there'll be a lot more pressure on Mac Jones in this game than there was in Buffalo, but much better passing conditions. So Indianapolis favored by 2.5. Where are you leaning in this one, Sam?
I think because these teams are sort of very similar, I think it ultimately comes down to which one do you trust more to execute that kind of game plan. And even though the Patriots are the team with the rookie quarterback, and usually that would sway you in that kind of decision, I think I just trust Bill Belichick to run that kind of game more than I trust Frank Reich and the Colts. And that's not even to say that Frank Reich is a fantastic coach. I think he's really good. But I just trust the Patriots more to run a sort of mistake-free type of game than the Colts.
Patriots have won 7 straight. Coming off the bye, they're hot. Do you completely buy into the Patriots? I mean, I pretty much do. I think when they had challenging tests, they passed them. Whether it was the Browns, the Chargers, they passed the challenging tests. They took care of business against lesser teams. But the last 7 weeks have completely changed our tune on the Patriots, right?
Yeah, I mean, a few weeks ago, I said the Patriots would get the number 1 seed in the AFC. So, yes, I'm bought into them, but these are the games. Like, these are the tests, right? The first test was Buffalo. They passed that test. They got out with a win, regardless of how ridiculous the game was. This is another test. The Colts are a legit team that can scare a lot of AFC sides if they make the playoffs. And then the next test after that will be the second Buffalo game, right? Prove that it wasn't a fluke. Prove that you are the team that is built to beat Buffalo. If they pass those 3 tests, I think they are the best team in the AFC, and a side shooting for that will have that number 1 seed.
All right, I'll take New England to cover the 2.5 on the road. Is that where you're going as well?
Yeah.
All right, you're both taking the New England Patriots. Let's go to, man, this thing lost a little bit of luster. Green Bay Packers at the Baltimore Ravens. If Lamar Jackson can't go, and is he certainly, where's he?
He wasn't in practice yesterday.
He's almost certainly not going to play with the sprained ankle. But if Lamar can't go, a much bigger challenge for the Baltimore Ravens. I feel like Lamar. Look, I compared Lamar Jackson to Carson Wentz on the podcast yesterday.
Horrified.
Not directly.
Horrified Beckett.
We can compare without equating exactly.
We
right?
can.
Right? That's allowed on our podcast.
It's encouraged.
there are some comparisons to career path. However, I do think the Ravens' best chance in this game would be like Lamar Jackson taking over, right?
I mean, that's always their best chance,
if he just takes over
right?
a game. So if it is Tyler Huntley, who's a good quarterback, right? He made 4th and 6, great throw under pressure and all that stuff. He's got to cut down on some of the negatives, the fumbles and all that stuff. But if it's Tyler Huntley going here, I'm intrigued because this is the best receiving core the Ravens have had in a while with Rashad Bateman, Marquise Brown, and Mark Andrews. You've got a questionable Sammy Watkins, but Ali Villanueva also questionable. That could
no longer the great.
That could work in Baltimore's favor.
The average Alejandro Villanueva.
That's all I've ever said is he's average, but he's might be below that right now. Anyway, what are you looking for in this game? Can the Ravens pull the upset in this one? What's the line? I lost it here.
5.5. I'm slowly throwing them in there.
Thank you. 5.5.
Yeah. So the interesting thing in this game to me is how do the Ravens get pressure on Aaron Rodgers without blitzing him? They're kind of in the same conundrum as remember earlier in the season when they faced the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Usually the Ravens are the most blitz-happy team in the NFL. They zero blitz a ton with no safety help over the top. They are aggressive. That's how they play defense. And they've done that basically every time they face the Chiefs, and it has spectacularly backfired. So this game, they didn't do it. Like this time they played the Chiefs, they went, no. We have learned the lesson. It's taken 3 or 4 shots, but we finally given up. We're not blitzing Mahomes. It does not work. He will destroy us. So they backed off, and they tried to play coverage, and it was much more successful. You have a similar story with Rodgers. Rodgers, again, is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL at carving up the blitz. But he does, it's not that he struggles under pressure, but pressure does affect him. Like it affects every quarterback, but it really does affect Rodgers a lot. This season, his yards per attempt is almost cut in half if you manage to get under pressure. Their offensive line is, it's been dealing with injuries all season long. They keep losing players. They're down to a 3rd-string left tackle. Dennis Kelly had to come in and play at right tackle last game against the Bears. It's creaking, So the Ravens are sort of looking at this game going, this is the same conundrum again. Blitzing obviously increases your chance of getting pressure because there's more guys rushing the passer. But blitzing, if we don't get there, we'll let Rodgers carve us to pieces. So how do we get pressure on this guy, cause him problems, get him uncomfortable in the pocket without doing what we normally do?
Yeah, the Packers have done a nice job handling all of those offensive line issues this year. So, look, Baltimore, I thought this offseason, they already had Calais Campbell, but adding, Odafe Owe, adding Justin Houston, I thought they did make some moves to be able to create pressure with, with Tyus Bowser, getting a little bit more playing time. So all the guys up front being able to create pressure, absolutely huge for the Ravens. And my question for you, right, are the Packers more impressive this year than last year to you?
Yeah.
Right, because last year we always talked about top heavy, but they did it. It was a little bit flashier last year too. They had a lot of games where they just straight dominated offensively, but much more of a team effort this year in Green Bay. Will that bode well for them when it come playoff time?
The Packers and the Cardinals were the 2 teams this season that I've been most impressed by in terms of weathering setbacks. Right, losing players, dealing with injuries that would cripple a lot of teams, and they've just kept on rolling. The Cardinals did it without Nuke Hopkins and Kyler Murray for a stretch of games. They're now going to be without Nuke Hopkins for the rest of the regular season. They've been dealing with some issues. Green Bay, they haven't had the best left tackle in the NFL, second best left tackle in the NFL now, best pass protecting left tackle in the NFL for the entire season. David Bakhtiari hasn't played yet. They basically haven't had their best pass rushers, Zadarius Smith, for almost the entire season. He lasted like a handful of snaps in the first game. They haven't had Jair Alexander for almost the whole season. Was it like week 2 he threw his shoulder into Najee Harris and hasn't played since? So those are arguably 3 of their 5 most important players. Devontae Adams and Rodgers would be the other 2, and they miss Rodgers for a game. That is a massively important group of players to be missing for almost the whole year, and they right now are still chasing that number 1 seed and may well get it. So it's very hard to not be massively impressed by what they've done. And on one hand, you sort of look at them and say, well, if that was their baseline, if that's all they were going to be going forward, you would have cause for concern. But in theory, all three of those guys are going to feature in the playoffs. Like, all the way through, they have been talking about those guys coming back at some point.
Jair is close. I don't know if Bakhtiari is yet, but Jair definitely close.
Right. But in theory, that is some significant reinforcements to arrive on this team right when they need it most. You know, heading into January where the games are more important, where you're one and done, you can't slip up. They have the specter of, like, legitimate, important, needle-moving players arriving back on this roster that most other teams in the NFL don't have, right? The Cardinals are looking at it and saying, okay, we might have Nuke Hopkins back for the playoffs. Maybe Tennessee still has hope that Derrick Henry returns, but like the Packers are getting potentially three guys back that are massively important to them.
If I told you at the beginning of the season that you could log in to Premium Stats, all part of your PFF Elite package at PFF.com, and go to the Green Bay Packers defense page, and their highest graded defensive players would be Rashawn Gary, Devondre Campbell, Preston Smith, and Rasul Douglas, you would say that doesn't make any sense. Rasul Douglas isn't even on the team. Devondre Campbell's never played that well. And Rashawn Gary, still a bit of a project, who has broken out here in year 3. Good job, Rashawn Gary, with his 58 total pressures. But yeah, they are getting great play from Devondre Campbell in the middle of the field and Rasul Douglas, who he fits the scheme, man. He always was he could always jump underneath routes and off coverage, and it's what the Packers like to do. It's what Rasul Douglas does extremely well. He's got the 3 interceptions, 2 pick sixes, I believe, right? And 5 pass breakups so far for Rasul Douglas, whereas the rest of his career, not even close as far as grading goes. He had a pretty good year in 2018, but for the most part, he's a 50s and 60s type of player playing at a 75 level. Game-ending
interception against Arizona. Okay, only because A.J. Green didn't look for the ball, but still.
But he caught it. I mean, it was one of those like Trevon Diggs. He may not have earned it necessarily, but when he had the opportunity, he caught it.
It was really impressive.
It was a really tough play.
Yeah.
The Packers are getting contributions from a lot of different people, and honestly, Aaron Rodgers hasn't played at that ridiculous elite level that he did last year, but he hasn't had to because everyone else is picking up the slack. That was our biggest question mark coming into the season, and I think the Packers are answering it. So 5.5 for the Packers, favored by 5.5 on the road in Baltimore. Are they going to cover that?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too. I really think so too. This might be the biggest challenge for Green Bay the rest of the season. Or what would you say? Do you, if I pull out their schedule quickly, because Green Bay, if they win out, they're the number 1 seed, and we talked about how massive this is. They're at Baltimore. They're home against Cleveland, Minnesota, again at home, and then at Detroit. Pretty winnable last 4 for Green Bay to go straight to the number 1 seed here.
Definitely. I mean, you would expect them, obviously, to beat Detroit, even if it's on the road. This is a key game for them, but Lamar potentially not being there is huge. The Vikings is the kind of game, like, I think that's a Sunday Night Football game, and it's, the Vikings, a rivalry game within the division. It's the kind of game that for no good reason could go against them.
Like, they already lost to Minnesota on the road.
You wouldn't expect it to happen again, but
I wouldn't.
You could see it. You know what I mean? Like the Vikings it's the kind of game where Minnesota could easily turn up randomly, throw up a ton of points with their weapons and cause problems, but Green Bay would definitely be the favorites. Cleveland is a similar kind of story. Like they're capable of beating anybody, but who knows?
Well, I think the Packers may catch a break here because I think this is probably their biggest challenge out of the last 4, and it might be Tyler Huntley instead of Lamar Jackson. Working from home is more important than ever. Optimize your home office with an X-Chair and our many accessories to enhance your focus, productivity, energy, and comfort. X-Chair. Big X. Once you feel the customized support of X-Chair's patented dynamic variable lumbar, that's the DVL. There's no going back. You can see it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. It's all in the LMX massage and temperature regulation, exclusively designed and made for the X-Chair. Versatile comfort, extraordinary design. X-Chair, it fits any space. So I got it in my home office. I love the performance, the comfort. I love the ability to just put it together, which I did very, very quickly. And I use the massage feature and the heating feature every single day. Works in little 15-minute increments, so you just kind of throw it on. You can charge it right from your computer with USB or right into the wall. So it's pretty convenient, and it has completely changed my workday. So go to xchairnflpod.com now. That's the letter X, chair, NFLPOD.com, or call 1-844-4XChair for $100 off your order. $100 off. X-Chair has a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. XChairNFLpod.com. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description, and of course, the beautiful pictures right there on the screen. Go play around with the customization at the very least. Go see if there's one for you. Color, style, material, all you can customize it.
And I see on their site there they have a clearance sale. So now's a good time to go grab one.
Go get the clearance sale. Get $100 off. XChairNFLpod.com. All right, another great game this week, even though it's an 11-point spread. New Orleans Saints at the Tampa Bay Bucs. I mean, the Saints have beaten the Bucs a lot, even before Tom Brady got there. But they've won 3 out of the 4 matchups over the last 2 years. The only win that the Bucs have is in the playoffs, of course, in the divisional round in New Orleans. The Saints won in a walk-off, pretty much a walk-off. The first matchup in the Dome, Tom Brady with a game-ending interception with an opportunity to lead the comeback. So the Saints have done a great job against the Bucs, but you've got Taysom Hill at quarterback and a whole bunch of injuries for the Saints recently, so that's why the spread's as big as 11 right now.
Have you been bullied into putting Sunday Night Football's game more prominently on our rundown? Is that what's happening here?
No.
No?
No. Just because there's an 11-point spread and I called it one of the games of the week, that has nothing to do with the boss's request to listen to Sunday Night Football first so he doesn't have to listen through 2 hours of stuff to get to his game. That has nothing to do with that.
Just checking. That's fine.
This is one of the best games of the week.
Absolutely.
I listen. My Sundays, what I do, I wait all day for Sunday night. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I don't watch the other games.
No.
I sit and wait until Sunday night.
And then overnight, you watch all the rest.
I catch up later because all I can think about is the Sunday night game.
Smart.
I wait all day for it.
Absolutely.
And then I watch it. And then I catch up on the other 15 games.
Yeah.
Later. Because Sunday night's what matters here. And that's why game of the week here, Saints at Bucs. Bucs by 11.
Nobody would ever accuse you of being a sellout.
Never
happened.
Check me out on the Chris Collinsworth podcast this week.
There's several, like it's kind of like the Urban Meyer thing, right? Like, we don't know if these are true or not, but there's a lot of points lining up in the same direction now. That's all I'm saying.
What?
There's a lot of data points now that are all pointing in one direction.
That I'm what?
That you're denying.
Let's talk about the game. Talk about the game, Sam. As the intro says. Talk about the game.
All right. I don't understand why the Saints can't find a deep ball with Taysom Hill at quarterback.
All right.
So if you go back to the start of last year, we've seen a reasonable amount of Taysom Hill now. And since that time, he's 5th in adjusted completion rate on anything under 20 yards, right? So if you Taysom Hill, the guy who a lot of people say can't throw, right? Cannot play, is not a passing quarterback, can't function without the ground game. Taysom Hill, since the start of last year, is 5th in adjusted completion rate on anything under 20 yards. But last year, the deep ball was absolutely horrendous. Like, he just couldn't hit anything. And again, it wasn't because he doesn't have the arm to get it done. It's because he's just late putting the ball in the air. It's like he doesn't see it doesn't see it quickly enough, doesn't believe it until he sees it open. Whatever it is, he was just too late putting the ball in the air. This year, he's just not even attempting deep passes. Like, they're not even there. He's not even taking that shot. But you need that. You're not a good enough passer. You don't have good enough receivers. The entire offense doesn't function if that threat isn't there. Like, this is a universal truth in the NFL, is that if you do not have the threat of a deep ball that can at least bank defenses off, you need to be so absurdly efficient at everything underneath that to succeed. And you're sort of seeing almost the flip side of that coin right now, which is, teams defending the likes of Kansas City, Buffalo, Seattle maybe, they're playing all those too high shells. They're essentially removing the possibility of that deep shot. And the offenses are not functioning because they can't be that efficient. That's some of the best offenses in the NFL. So teams are not defending that way against Taysom Hill, right? The threat that he has on the ground, teams are doing the opposite. They're actually defending him as if that deep shot isn't a threat, as if it isn't there. He needs to show them that it is. And you need to start taking advantage of the things that your rushing threat is opening up. Otherwise, this offense has no shot.
Yeah, because the run-heavy attack opens up the deep passing game. I think your number about the adjusted completion percentage for Taysom Hill and the underneath stuff, I think a lot of that is scheme based.
Of
too.
course,
it's not just act, but it shows. I think that's where Sean Payton excels, right? And he's had Drew Brees running that offense, and they do a really good job with like their spacing concepts and just saying, look, you've got 3 underneath zone defenders. We're going to put 4 receivers out there. You have 4 underneath zone defenders. We're going to find the hole. They scheme it up really well underneath with the Saints. But yes, to take advantage of Taysom Hill, the run threat, you need that take the top off the defense type of threat, and I don't think they have it. I mean, I keep getting questions about some of my radio hits. What are the Saints going to do at quarterback? And there are next year, right, and beyond, right? Would they make a play for like a Derek Carr or whatever it is? But I think the question's also going to be, what are they going to do at receiver, as much as what are they going to do at quarterback? Because they just don't have these vertical threats either. So it's Taysom Hill doesn't throw the deep ball well. His timing's not great, and all the things that you've laid out. And they also don't have legitimate take the top off the defense type of players. So they're not attacking every level of the field. The Bucs defense goes through spurts where they give up the underneath stuff, and you can kind of dink and dunk your way down the field. But I think in this one, they're stacking the box again. They're going to do everything they can to take away the run game and probably the short passing game and making Taysom Hill throw the ball over the top. And I agree. I don't know if they can do that.
I think they have receivers that can take the top off a defense when you consider the type of offense that they're running right now with Taysom Hill.
They can run the seam routes and all that stuff. You know, they can run seams.
Yeah, like they have guys like Kenny Stills has been a successful deep threat throughout his entire career for teams that don't play the way that the Saints are playing, with a powerful running attack and Taysom Hill at quarterback manipulating coverages.
He's old, man.
He's not that old.
Kenny Stills is your deep threat. I know he can still do it.
They also have Deontay Harris. Granted, he hasn't been playing.
When he's out there, he can do it,
right.
For sure.
But they have these players that we should have seen a more successful deep ball from Taysom Hill at this point, is all I'm saying. And I think there's been 2 different reasons, or it's happened in 2 different ways. 1, not being able to hit him at all, and 2, not even attempting them. Just that needs to show up generally, but this week in particular.
The real issue here for the Saints is everybody that has been hurt. And so it's not just they don't have receivers, it's their offensive line. They were missing both tackles in their last game, right? Teron Armstead and Ryan Ramczyk. They're still questionable. Marcus Davenport, questionable. Armstead and Ramczyk, both questionable as of Wednesday. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, questionable. Gardner-Johnson had an interception of Brady in that first matchup. And that's been one of the stories here. Tom Brady has something like, I got to recheck the numbers, but as of a couple weeks ago, like 40% of his turnover-worthy plays with the Bucs have come against the Saints in the 3-4 games that they've played against the Saints. So Brady as a whole for the Bucs has done a really nice job of taking care of the ball in this new system, getting the ball down the field and all that stuff. But against the Saints, he fumbled in the first matchup, had 2 interceptions, including the game ender. The Saints defense has done a really nice job against this Bucs offense, playing tight man coverage and just making throws a little bit more difficult for Brady than he's had against other teams. The Bucs are going to have to, the Saints are going to have to do that again. Not having a Gardner-Johnson hurts a little bit, and not having, Cameron Jordan, is he already out? Yeah. No, he was out on Sunday for COVID. Not having a Davenport and guys to get pressure up front, like the more the Saints get depleted, that's why the line I think is so great at 11. The other part here, the Bucs I've mentioned before, they've been so much better at home, averaging 37 points a game at home. But this is where last year the Bucs had their worst game of the season. The Saints had their best game of the season. It was 38-3 or whatever on Sunday Night Football. So I don't know if home and away matters in this matchup, but
the Saints have been a consistent thorn in the side of Tampa Bay for a while.
Sometimes it's just the game of football, right? Sometimes it is such a matchup-driven game. The Saints defense, for whatever reason, they match up well, and they also do enough to create indecision in Brady and in the Bucs offense. All that said, the Saints also busted a coverage to lead to what was the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter against the Bucs too, because it goes both ways. But the Saints have had a ton of success against the Bucs. So I think if you're leaning on that, you're saying, okay, they'll keep it close. I just think the injuries are from a win-loss standpoint, the injuries are probably too much for the Saints to overcome in this game, because the Bucs are a better team. That's the bottom line. They're a better team, but the Saints match up well against a pretty good Bucs team. So Bucs have a few guys that are questionable as well, most of them in their secondary. Where are you leaning on this? Is 11 too much for the Bucs, or do you lean on the Bucs' dominance at home and they're just a better team?
I mean, it's a lot of points, but I think they should cover it, but the fact that it's a division game scares me, and I would lean New Orleans to cover just for those reasons.
We're going to agree
that
again,
single reason,
aren't we?
Probably.
In the last game, too, some of the other stuff that happened. Jameis Winston got the start. That's when he got hurt. Trevor Siemian came in, made some big plays. There was a questionable call that negated. Like, I'm only mentioning this because Simeon's worst pass of the game got negated by a kind of a weak passer, roughing the passer call. So Trevor Siemian's grade was horrible, but he did make a couple key throws that kept the Saints in the game and eventually helped them win it. So the Saints won with Trevor Siemian the first matchup, which is why when you see the 11-point spread and the way these teams have played recently, it does feel steep. So I would lean New Orleans here as well. For Brady, just the MVP race that everybody likes to discuss. Brady's worth almost, using wins above replacement, he's almost a win better than the next closest quarterback. QB2 is Justin Herbert in WAR, and the difference between Herbert, the same difference between Brady and Herbert is like QBs 2 through 8. Herbert to the 8th best quarterback. In other words, Brady should be, I think, by our numbers, the hands-down MVP unless he screws it up over these last couple weeks. But as far as like, because people like showcase games, probably Brady's last MVP showcase game. Plus,
this does feel like a weird year where nobody wants to win that award, doesn't it? Like,
it does.
Brady right now is winning MVP basically by default because his disappointments or his screw-ups have been less severe than everybody else. As soon as anybody gets into contention for MVP, they have a terrible game or they go on a bad run or something happens and takes them out of it.
Brady's the only quarterback this year, too, that hasn't had a terrible game. He's had some bad plays and moments. He has not had a grade under 60. Like Rodgers has 2 of them.
Right. But he also went on a run of like 4 or 5 games where it was just sort of 60s nit.
Where it was just okay.
Right.
And that's the other thing, too. Brady's best games came in the first 5 weeks of the season. Like, that was his best stretch of play. So the timing of it doesn't feel as good as far as, like, you know, your MVP moments and all that fun stuff. But I still think it's even if you just look at, like, raw stats and everything, though, Brady's got, you know, 5 more touchdowns than anyone else, and they're averaging 2 more points per game than any other team. I mean, as far as a lot of those other numbers that will be looked at, I think it's Tom Brady unless he hits a rough patch here over these last few weeks statistically. So you're going to take New Orleans to cover, and we're both in lockstep in our first 3 games.
Yeah, Tampa Bay should cover, but it's a division game, and the Saints have caused them problems. I don't like it, but yes.
I don't know how much past matchups really matter, but the evidence keeps mounting that, look, the Saints just match up well against the Bucs, and the Saints have enough in the secondary to kind of slow them down again. Was Gronk available? I don't think Gronk was in that first game. That would be one other potential difference, though, as well. Football fans, I'm sure we all love an action-packed, high-scoring NFL game, but with the latest no-brainer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. You'll be a winner once a single point is scored. New customers who bet just $1 on any team to score can win $100 in free bets. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, you can still get in on the NFL action. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. And DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet $1 on any team to score, and you win $100 in free bets. It's that simple. If they score, you score with promo code PFF. This week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. 1 per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. If you're in one of those 3 states and you haven't done this yet, go do it. Go get your free $100 in bets. Think about what we could do with all those free bets. $100 worth. All right, what other great games do we have this weekend? The other Saturday matchup, Las Vegas Raiders at the Cleveland Browns. This is the COVID game, one of them. Washington also has like 17 players on the list. So Cleveland, is there talk? There's at least some talk about moving this game? I don't think the NFL wants to move island games, though, as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, I don't know if the NFL is talking about it, but everybody else is. This is the game where, they said before the season that they were not going to move games for COVID cases for unvaccinated players. So essentially, if you didn't get vaccinated and you had a massive outbreak, unlucky. That's your fault. You should have got vaccinated. It sounds like a lot of these players were vaccinated, so all of a sudden that opens the door for them to potentially move this game.
So now it's okay. We can move it.
Yeah, potentially. And, a ton of the Browns are down. Not just important players, but also, Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, has got COVID, and he was apparently vaccinated twice, boosted, all those kinds of things. He's done everything.
Great.
And he still got hit. Troy Hill, John Johnson, Baker Mayfield, Austin Hooper, Jarvis Landry, Wyatt Teller, Jedrick Wills, half the offensive line. I mean, they're in rough shape if this game goes ahead.
Yeah. What do we even break down here? I mean, this is one of those I half jokingly say I like to know how does a team play when they have their backup quarterback? How do they play when they have no players? We saw this from the Browns last year, too. They had the wide receiver room outbreak, and Baker Mayfield's top 4 receivers were all tight ends in that one game, I think, against the Jets. So they kind of ran into this last year as well, where, when it completely destroys an entire unit, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's receivers, whatever it is, it just completely changes the game.
The biggest impact for them, I think, is on that offensive line. They would now be down 3/5 of one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and Max Crosby's charmed life this year continues, right? The guy is leading the NFL in total pressures by 10 and just keeps finding backup players to go up against. And regardless at this point, whether the Browns had everybody available or not,
just give Max Crosby proper credit at some point, Sam.
Their right tackle would be a backup. Either way, Max Crosby would be facing a backup tackle. The fact that they're then potentially down another 2 guys opens up space for Yannick Ngakoue to have a monster game as well. But it's an interesting game for that because you've got Crosby dominating all season long. You've got Ngakoue playing really well. And then the Browns have Myles Garrett, who's single-handedly determining games as well with strip, sack, fumble, scoop, and score type of plays. Garrett is going, the Raiders' offensive line is terrible as well. Now, Garrett will be primarily rushing against their one good player, Colton Miller. But this is a sort of interesting showdown of dominant pass rushes.
Yeah, it's a huge game for both teams too.
Assuming any of those players play.
What are we analyzing here? It's a whole bunch of question marks.
The Raiders only have one player on the COVID list, so they should be fine.
The Raiders should be absolutely fine. The Raiders are 6-7. The Browns are 7-6. So obviously, huge playoff implications here. They played in a throw-it-out game last year too. Remember, it was so cold and windy, we threw it out. We didn't even count it last year. Mm-hmm. It was one of your throw-them-out games.
Yep.
The Browns only played 3 real games, according to Sam, last year. This was not one of them.
My adjusted rankings.
Their adjusted rankings. Raiders offensively, they need to get back on track. They were.
How do they do that?
I hate oversimplifying it. Just throw the ball down the field. But not having Darren Waller, you hit on it Monday, has been massive, right? When the Raiders have been really good offensively, they had legitimate threats at every level of the field, right? Early season, Henry Ruggs had to be accounted for down the field. Darren Waller at the short and intermediate level, mostly, but very much the intermediate level. He was their threat. Hunter Renfrow underneath. When you have that, all 3 layers, essentially, you can attack defenses any which way. So, that's when the Raiders have to figure out a way to get Deshaun Jackson involved, to find another intermediate threat. You still have Renfrow underneath. But Carr has to take some more shots, right? And not to oversimplify it, but Carr has to throw the ball down the field just a little bit more here.
Yeah, I think you're right. Deshaun Jackson is he's the one player on this offense that they've added that is potentially transformative to what they do. The amount he plays, I think, is a significant variable in how good this offense is going to be. Obviously, the offense needs to run through Darren Waller. If he's not there, they just don't have the one player that consistently wins to the point where they can roll and be functional and just keep the chains moving. But even if Waller's there, the next guy that changes things is Deshaun Jackson. And it's again, it's not even he needs to see X number of deep targets in a game. He just needs to be out there. He needs to be on the field to the point where a defense has to look, break the huddle and go, oh, crap, Deshaun Jackson's over there. That changes what we do in coverage. That manipulates the coverage. It makes sure, the safety keeps an eye on what he's doing. Everything rolls in his direction. All of a sudden, that backs off the defense and gives them some space underneath. And suddenly Darren Waller has extra space.
There's one other point to having Darren Waller, though, too. The new age tight end, it's not even new age, but like the great tight ends like a Waller or a Travis Kelce, they don't just line up at tight end, obviously. They line up out wide. They line up all over the place. Darren Waller is giving you a tell in coverage. If he lines up out wide and he's got a linebacker on him, it's man. If it's a corner on him, it's zone. I mean, you've got all of those different added benefits to when Darren Waller is out there. Plus, oh, by the way, he gets open and catches passes and is really good. And Derek Carr relies on him heavily. So Waller's questionable. I wish there was just more information, right? You get guys that missed multiple times. What's questionable is just so vague and wide. Is it bad questionable? We need a couple more layers of detail here. But either way, I think the Raiders, they got to figure out how to create some explosive plays down the field.
They also they need to figure out how to patch up that offensive line. And I'm not sure there's anything they can do about it. But we saw last week that Chris Jones versus Alex Leatherwood was a game-wrecking mismatch.
Yeah.
Like, okay, most teams don't have a Chris Jones, but the Browns have some players that can screw that up. Like Alex Leatherwood went from being probably the worst right tackle in the NFL. Then he moved to guard, and it was like, well, he's better at guard. He's still bad. So Alex Leatherwood's season as a rookie has been pretty catastrophic so far. They need to figure out how to either get him some help or start thinking about sitting him down or something. But he is a massively problematic part of a pretty bad offensive line right now.
I don't want to even name any players. Is Malik McDowell going to play?
He's on the list, I believe.
Jadeveon Clowney.
Malik McDowell is on the
questionable.
List. Clowney, Tyke McKinley is on the list.
So they're not going to take advantage of anything if all their defensive line is out.
Well, you basically need Myles Garrett on his own. Like move him all over the defensive line. Have him just move him around. Every play is in a different spot. You're going to have to do this by yourself.
This will be Myles Garrett's Defensive Player of the Year legitimate game. There's all the players.
It's tough.
That are out on the screen there.
Yeah.
Offensive line, defensive line. It is rough.
The Browns, I think, are a better team than the Raiders, but the Browns aren't going to be the Browns if this list holds up anything like what it is now and they don't move the game.
Yeah, the line as of now is Raiders by 1.5. I'll take the Raiders even on the road here because of all the.
I think you have to at this point, just given all those variables.
We're just going to take all the same teams. It's great. It's all good. It's all good. Sometime we'll disagree. This is an interesting line too. Cincinnati at Denver, Bengals at the Broncos. Broncos by 2.5. Again, generally means teams are close. Teams are similar. Teams kind of going in different directions. The Bengals at one point were the number one seed, like 6 weeks into the season, but the Bengals looked like they were a playoff lock. Now they're not. They're certainly not a lock. Denver just keeps lurking around here. And so it should be another. I mean, it's a huge game, obviously, for playoff implications, but should be one of the better games of the week as well. What are you looking for in this Broncos-Bengals matchup?
These are two teams kind of in the same place, and the line, I think, probably reflects that. Does it feel like the sort of overall atmosphere in both fan bases is like completely opposite, though? The Bengals are moving in the right direction. Hey, we're contending for the playoffs. We got Joe Burrow. Everything's great. Like, they feel good. Denver might make the playoffs, and the entire fan base is miserable, thinking this is just awful.
I sense it the other way, which is, like a high-level Cincinnati feels good. We found our guy. We got Joe Burrow. But Cincinnati's also having the, like, we blew it again flashbacks. Cincinnati's having those types of vibes.
But Denver, certainly. Like, I do this weekly Denver radio hit, and they're like, why should we feel better about this team? Because everybody hates this. Yeah, well, I mean, maybe.
That's what happens.
Maybe a little bit, but.
That's because you have Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback.
Yeah.
Because you don't. Like, the Bengals can look at this and say, well, we're going to be a contender every year because we have Joe Burrow. Let's fix some other stuff. Denver should be saying, we've got the other stuff. The rest of the team's looking pretty good. Got to figure out the quarterback situation. I don't think we can sustain this year over year. It is interesting, though. The Bengals' defense has been kind of like hit or miss week to week, right? So I don't know. Every week I try to be encouraged by the Bengals' defense. I'm I ended up becoming discouraged by them the following week. But when they put that all together, the Bengals are a very dangerous team.
Yeah. We get to see Jamar Chase versus Patrick Surtain, which is a matchup we didn't really see in college because when Alabama played LSU, it was Chase on Trayvon Diggs, who then went to the NFL. So we never really got to see what Patrick Surtain would have done against Jamar Chase. And I think, he certainly would have done a better job than Trayvon Diggs did, on the basis that the Trayvon Diggs tape alone probably dropped into the second round. Like, what Jamar Chase did to Trayvon Diggs in college probably cost Trayvon Diggs a round in the draft. I'm not even that's not hyperbole. Genuinely, that game probably cost Trayvon Diggs a full round of draft stock. Equally, I said something like, if Jamar Chase had basically one season of an incredible college career, if his tape had been that one game against Alabama and then just mic dropped and declared for the draft, he probably would have been a first-round player. Just that one tape. Yeah. And just left. Peace out. I'm declaring for the draft. I'm out of here. I think he would have been a first-round guy. So we finally get to see Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase dictating everybody's draft stock.
Everybody's. Yeah. Including his own. We finally get to see Jamar Chase versus Patrick Surtain. That'll be fun. I also think, the Bengals offense has been impressive this year, and whilst their offensive line isn't fixed, it's definitely better than a year ago. But all of a sudden, it's banged up, and they're missing a few players, and it's starting to get concerning again. And when you add in the fact that Joe Burrow takes some hits that he shouldn't, and you start to get that Alex Smith type feeling of, God, just stop getting hit like that. So their offensive line is pretty banged up. I think that's a big part of why they've dropped a couple of games. Like the 49ers pass rush was just getting to Burrow constantly, was wrecking the game, and that's why I think they always run a little bit more than you want them to anyway. But I think that was one thing discouraging them from just turning the ball over to Joe Burrow and saying, go win, try and get us back into this game. Denver doesn't really have a pass rush. So this might be a sneaky game where Burrow actually just dominates and carves them up, because I'm not sure Denver has the rush to take advantage of the fact that their offensive line is banged up.
We did a nice Joe Burrow versus Justin Herbert, PFF NFL Daily, the other day. I made the decision or the mistake to go read the comments in that on the YouTube video. I was actually shocked at how many people came in defending Justin Herbert, who, by the way, I chose Herbert at the end of the video.
Just about.
What?
Just about.
I mean, I said it was close.
Yeah.
That's okay.
You started off with Burrow, and then you sat on the fence for the rest of the podcast, and then right at the end you were like, okay, Herbert.
No, I mean
that's pretty much.
Yeah, there's some truth there, but I started out I say I'll take Herbert, and then I made the case for Burrow, and then I took Herbert again. Okay. I was just shocked at how many people went in there thinking, because we live in Cincinnati now, that we had this massive Bengals bias and all that stuff, right? But the number I keep pulling out on Burrow is what you're saying, the hits that he's taken, right? The pressure dropbacks that turn into sacks. He's been sacked 41 times. Sack totals are closer to a quarterback number than they are offensive line number. But your point's good. Like, if Denver can't get pressure, Burrow's not going to take as many sacks, and he's going to be able to spread the ball around. Also, the emergence of T. Higgins in recent weeks continue to reiterate that. His size, coming out of Clemson, loved his just basketball, go up and get it type of ability, and the Bengals are tapping into that a little bit. That's dangerous, man. The more Jamar Chase and T. Higgins work as complementary pieces now, all the more weapons for Joe Burrow, who's averaging 8.4 yards per attempt. He's number 2 in overall PFF grade right now. Got high big-time throw percentage, so the Bengals can be a big explosive offense and not be an offense that's just, Joe Mixon's going to get 30 carries and Burrow's going to drop back 24 times. I think we could start seeing that switch where the Bengals can start being a little bit more aggressive and put more points up on the board. And I think they'll do it in this one. I like the Bengals on the road here, getting the 2.5, because I still don't know what to make of Denver, and I still believe in my hometown Bengals because we're biased.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are going to cover as well, because I think Burrow's going to have a good game.
Oh, boy.
There are some weird lines this week, and the next game is one of the stranger ones to me.
Well, Washington's got 17 COVID players.
17 COVID players. That's why the line's insane.
I think so. The football team at the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles by 7.
Oh, God, it's the whole team.
Yeah. That's the line. That's why.
Hang on. Most of these players aren't that important, though. Okay, hang on. Now we've got
Their
to the
entire defensive line.
Yeah, now we've got to the important players.
Yeah. Chase Young and Montez Sweat were already out.
Yeah. Jonathan Allen's there. Tim Settle's there. The great David Mayo is there.
The great David Mayo. Can't wait to just have like a My Guys show.
Yeah, that's a pretty rough list of players missing. All right.
What are you looking for in
the
this
line's
game?
okay then. I'm okay with this line all of a sudden.
This is a preseason Week 4 game.
So my simulation, remember, had Washington making the playoffs.
Your simulation did not account for the COVID outrage.
Right, so this is what I'm going to say. If Philadelphia sweeps Washington, Philly jumps back into the playoffs. Like this game almost determines which one of these teams is going to stumble into a wild card spot. And, Washington, they've both been kind of dropping games that they shouldn't necessarily have dropped. They both kind of made a mess of the season overall. But all of a sudden, one of them could right the ship completely, basically, with this game, or at least put themselves in pole position to do it. And obviously, Philadelphia has a much better chance, given that most of their team is not on the COVID list.
Yeah, and I don't know how much Greenline over at PFF.com, I don't know how much they factor in non-quarterbacks. Like, we take into account the injury list and everything, so it's got to be in there a little bit. So Greenline's slightly leaning Washington, but I don't know if it can factor in strong enough all of the players that they're missing
right
there.
But you can see the kind of the way the line fluctuates on Greenline. It shows you sort of over the period of days what that line has been doing, and you can see it kind of step by step moving towards a bigger line for Philadelphia as all these guys get added to the COVID list for Washington.
You're supposed to wiggle a cable. Which cable? Tyler, just tell me which cable it is.
You can't even be there's like one cable.
This?
What? No. The connection that leads from the microphone into the stand, the big silver thing right in front of your face. This is terrible podcasting.
Yeah, I know.
That one.
Wiggle.
Good God.
What? I was trying to be subtle at first.
Yeah, well done. Smooth.
Oh, that's I see what you're saying. I see that's
You see?
Cable, yeah.
You see? The one cable that you
We
can
any
wiggle.
better yet? Just trying to make sure the audio issues don't show up again.
There are people out there, right, that like week on week are like, guys, your audio's screwed. There's a buzzing sound. And trust us, we know we're trying to fix it. We've been troubleshooting for weeks.
Working on it.
And this kind of thing, Steve desperately trying to find a cable to wiggle is part of the problem. So we apologize for our own
It's definitely my
incompetence.
fault. Jalen Hurts still questionable as of Wednesday with an ankle. And they have Quez Watkins out on the COVID list, so it's not all one-sided.
It's not all.
Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard.
We got
also
17 players versus one.
Could be more of a Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell day.
I'm all
in
for
the
Boston
backfield
Scott day.
with the Eagles. Remember, the Eagles' rushing attack has been kind of their calling card the second half of the season here. And whether Hurts is out there or not, they're still going to try to run the ball, especially against this depleted Washington front.
You don't want to see a second Gardner Minshew game?
I don't care. I'm fine with that. But they're still going to run the ball, even with Gardner.
Yes.
Are we both going to take the Eagles in this one as well? I just don't know what to preview here.
No, screw it. Washington's somehow going to cover a 7-point line, even with
If
no
they're going to
players.
make the Super Bowl, they have to. So you got to
true.
stick with that.
That's true.
I'll take Philly to cover
That
the
being
7.
said, last week I picked Dallas as an emotional hedge for that. 83% of the cash is coming in on Philadelphia, which is another reason the line is shifting in that direction.
They're seeing the COVID list. Tennessee Titans at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Titans favored by 2 at Pittsburgh. The Steelers coming off of I don't want to even call it heartbreak. They almost made the ridiculous comeback against the Minnesota Vikings.
Coming off an insane game is about the totality of that. I don't understand. I don't know what to do with these games that are completely the tale of two halves. Where like, what do you take from that? Like,
it's probably all
you got annihilated.
All evened out at this. It all evens out.
You got absolutely annihilated in the first half. You should have been down by like 40 points, and then you almost executed a last-second comeback. So do you take the positive out of that and go, well, we came back against a good team and almost got it done? Or do you like, what the hell is wrong with you? You got destroyed for 30 minutes of football.
You just went full head ball coach with that one. You kind of dropped the Southern
Full
accent
Herb.
out there. Yeah. Not him, just like your quintessential
Brian Kelly?
head ball coach. Yeah, you went a little Brian Kelly on that one. When in Rome. When the Steelers got
Went in the bayou.
when the Steelers got wrecked up front in the first half, I want to say, like, oh, the Vikings offensive line really dominated, right? Yeah. They were just, like, the Steelers weren't even lining up correctly. It looked like they couldn't even get aligned. And it was like, hey, we got 4 players trying to, stop 6 blockers in Dalvin Cook. Like, the math just did not check out. The Steelers, they did a much better job in the second half, getting aligned and covering gaps in the run game. But Tennessee, as they're awaiting Derrick Henry to come back, still, I think, has to run the ball enough, right? Enough to create those one-on-ones on the outside. But Tennessee can have some success in the run game because the Steelers have just been pretty poor against the run this year.
Yeah, they have been. Tennessee's offensive line, hasn't looked like the same unit since they lost Derrick Henry, but it was run blocking better last week against Jacksonville, for whatever that's worth. So
yeah, the Steelers are coming off this ridiculous Thursday night game. The Titans are coming off of like an exhibition game against a horrible Jacksonville team with like the, coach that they just fired.
Yeah, not ideal. So can that hold up this week? Like, can they actually have that successful run blocking again against a better defensive front, albeit one that had its own problems, last week against the Vikings?
You're supposed to keep talking here.
Oh, supposed to keep talking? My bad. What's going on? We got some.
See, now Tyler's going to fix my cable.
I mean, this is great podcasting.
This is what we do. You have to let people understand what's happening.
You do. Well, look, there's a whole bunch of people listening to this that can't see Tyler walking into the shot and fixing your microphone.
Well, because I can't do it. I'm not capable of doing it myself.
So that is a factor.
Where's TJ Watt's injury status, too? That's the other piece here. Pittsburgh's strength is – thank you, Tyler. Pittsburgh's strength is rushing the passer. TJ Watt with the groin injury, he was limited in Wednesday. He's questionable as well. Big Ben's questionable? Come on. He's not really questionable. Like, he's going to go. Big Ben always goes.
I think that's just describing his play.
Big Ben's play is questionable. He's coming off 2 pretty good games. After all the turnover-worthy plays last Thursday,
Minnesota.
he made some big-time
second
throws.
half.
Yeah, he made some throws. Pectoral/shoulder. Ben just loves that. He feeds off that. He's got to have the record for most times questionable and end up and still played, right? Most limps and hobbles and lists of injuries. We got to get like a list of all his injuries, like on like one of those, like the skeletons where you just
like the Baker Mayfield thing.
Yeah.
You see that every week with him.
That's going to be in PFF IQ.
Oh yeah.
The injury report.
It would just be everything for Roethlisberger.
Yeah, like the whole body red.
Yeah.
So Roethlisberger's questionable, but TJ Watt I think is really the key here, because they're relying more on their defensive front. Cameron Hayward's having a great year, but they're relying more on that defensive front this year, and they got to get some pressure because the secondary isn't great in Pittsburgh.
David Questenberry is he's grading well. His run blocking grade is off the charts, but he's given up 33 pressures, 9 of which have been sacks. Of his pressures, 19 have either knocked the quarterback down or sacked him.
Yikes. Yeah, and that's where
pretty terrible.
That's where Watt would be rushing.
Yeah.
I think the Titans, are they just a system right tackle team? They just keep churning out good right tackle play. Dennis Kelly, Jack Conklin, everybody's a good right tackle in Tennessee, except Isaiah Wilson.
Yeah.
They could not turn Isaiah Wilson.
To be fair, he never actually tried to play right tackle.
Maybe he would have been good.
Yeah.
We'll always have those threes. Well, who had a better tenure? Isaiah Wilson with the Titans or Urban Meyer with the Jaguars?
I thought that, people brought up Antonio Brown's Raiders career.
Yeah.
I think Antonio Brown's Raiders tenure and Urban Meyer's Jags coaching tenure are the same. They're like the player equivalent of the coaching. Those are the same gigs where it's just so ridiculous. And by the end of it, you could read literally anything, put in a report, and believe it.
Yes.
Oh, Antonio Brown froze his feet off with cryogenics? Of course.
He did.
Naturally. Yeah. Oh, he spray painted his helmet so he'd be able to use some outlawed geriatric system that they banned because, of course he did. Like, you would believe anything at that point.
I need to see the tail of the tape now. I need to see AB with the Raiders, Urban with the Jaguars.
Urban Meyer just booted his kicker in the ass and called him a dipshit? Of course he did.
Of course.
That's the world we're living in now. Things have gotten so insane that you're just like, yeah, sure.
That story came across as Urban. So the story is like, we got to do this, right? Jake Lambeau, he's stretching.
Josh Lambeau?
Josh Lambeau, sorry. I don't know any kickers.
No.
Lambeau. Urban kicks him, says, make your effing kicks.
Dipshit.
Yeah. And Lambeau was like, oh, he doesn't even call the specialist by names and stuff. It feels like that's like Urban's humor. Like that was him trying to be like.
Does it?
That, to me, I read it as that was his way of kind of being like a little funny and a player's coach, but serious. And then when Lambeau said, don't effing kick me, and Urban yelled back at him, like then it got more contentious. I really think that's Urban Meyer, like he wrote a book on leadership, but he read the book on leadership, which was like, if you're a football coach, walk around during stretch and joke with your players. And that was like Urban's way of like, I'm going to kick my kicker, tell him to make his kicks, not talk to him by name, and he's getting out with his players coach.
He wrote a book on leadership.
He did. I was gifted the Urban Meyer book on leadership.
It's amazing.
From my wife, Kelly. Kelly, your judgment is questionable.
The kicking thing might have been an attempt at humor, but I think the idea that he just calls specialists as kicker, punter, long snapper, I think that's just him not believing those players are worth his time.
Yeah, yes, and that's not him being funny. That's him being like, football guy. Don't talk to specialists. Don't do that. When I was on with Ramon Foster and the group in Nashville, they were reading excerpts from the Urban Meyer's leadership book this morning as I was getting on the radio. Sorry, we just took all of our daily content and.
No, we could talk about this for hours. We're good.
We could.
We got plenty.
We could. Which game are we talking about? Where are we?
We cleared Tennessee, Pittsburgh.
It's the Tennessee game because the Titans just demoralized the Jaguars. They were the ones who knocked Urban out of the league.
They retired Urban.
Yes, they got him out of there. Tennessee by 2. Where are you leaning in this one on the road in Pittsburgh?
I'm going Tennessee. I really like the coaching job that Mike Vrabel has done. I think they continually sort of show up and overperform expectations despite, again, another team that's like been wrecked by injuries, had a lot of what makes them taken away, and they still show up.
Is he almost like the next Mike Tomlin?
The next Mike Tomlin.
That was the comparison I made earlier this year. Mike Vrabel's the guy who's just going to continue to just exceed expectations year over year.
So Mike Tomlin gives these really thoughtful and like interesting answers in press conferences and stuff. Whereas Mike Vrabel just seems to get like upset and storm out. You see him.
Not everything's the same.
They claim Zach Cunningham, right? And he was like, "I'm not talking about Zach Cunningham for 2 weeks because he's not eligible yet." And like 2 or 3 questions into this, they were like, "But could you just tell us a little bit about his skill set?" He's like, "This is ridiculous." He just walks off the screen.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Press conference lasted like 90 seconds. Like, I mean. Okay, I understand that if you said I don't want to talk about him and you get 3 questions, you'd be a little bit annoyed. On the other hand, of course they're going to ask you about him. You just signed him. Like, these guys have to fill, column inches in the paper or whatever. I just, doesn't really feel like a reason to storm off.
The man didn't want to get into it.
He didn't.
My Vrabel-Tomlin comp is more, Tomlin's had bouts where he's done some smart things, going for 2, more than you normally would, and all these different things. But Tomlin has gotten the most out of his team. I think Vrabel has the ability to just be around for a while, getting the most out of his team.
I think they're the best of the old school style coaches, like the guys that are embracing the sort of the way you always did it with physicality and with like they're the best, of that last sort of generation of old school coach, as opposed to the guys that are, pushing the analytics and the science and all those kinds of things and trying to get things done in that way. It's not these are not necessarily mutually exclusive. You don't have to do things in that new cutting edge. Like, you can still get it done if you're an old school coach, if you're good enough.
I'm going to go with the original Mike Tomlin.
The OG Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. So I think Tomlin's going to I think I'll take the Steelers to win and cover.
Okay.
The 2. The Steelers, as of right now, are the 11th seed at 6-6-1, but the teams ahead of them, there's 5 teams that are all 7-6. So it's close, but there's a lot of teams to jump. Colts, Bills, Browns, Bengals, and Broncos are all 7-6. The Steelers, with that tie against the Lions, looming large.
You can't say 11th seed like that's a thing. They're in the hunt. That's the thing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, they're in the. We haven't said that in a while.
Yeah.
A lot of sober people doing the drinking game. In the hunt. I'll take Pittsburgh.
Okay.
To cover. Rest of the slate is questionable.
So this is another game with a weird line. Is this another one where there's 28 people on COVID list that I'm not aware of?
You looking at Falcons, Niners?
Yeah.
How's that weird?
How's it weird? Like Atlanta.
The Falcons aren't good, and the Niners are way better when they're all healthy.
There's like a game between them.
It's in San Francisco. Might be
Okay.
different.
So?
There's a game between them, but the Niners, with this offense cooking the way they are, they're just a better team. Niners by 9 over the Falcons is the line.
I think that's a lot. I think that the Atlanta Falcons. So the one thing that this game sort of screams to me is, has there ever been a game with as many like freakish, unique athletes in it as this one? Just on offense, just the playmakers, right? George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Kyle Juszczyk, Brandon Ayuk. On the Falcons, you've got Kyle Pitts, the unicorn, Cordero Patterson, the best like freak show multi-position guy in the NFL. You've got all these like unique playmakers, and they're going to be facing each other.
The 49ers just offensive grade is 4th in the NFL. Just overall grading, right behind the Bucs, right ahead of the Rams. I mean, this Niners offense, we've talked about it a ton. They're humming, man. The way they're tapping into Deebo and Ayuk and Kittle and all that. That's why the line is so strong. A couple years ago, they played, I believe it was in San Francisco. It was the 2019 year. That was when the Falcons were horrible. And the Niners were a Super Bowl caliber team. And I remember the Falcons lost like at the goal line. Was it Julio trying to score at the goal line? He was about inches short to either tie the game or to win it, whatever it was. So, yeah, the Falcons are capable of keeping it close. The Falcons are kind of like the Broncos to me, where it's like week to week, hit or miss. I think overall the Falcons aren't a great roster, but they have these weeks where they kind of hang tough in there and play well. I don't know if this is one of those. I'm liking the trending Niners, the team that nobody wants to play them come January.
Nobody wants to play the 49ers come January.
Yeah, they're the team.
Okay.
PFF NFL Daily this week. We talked about it.
Yeah. I just think this is an interesting game. But like betting on the Falcons is always a bad idea. As soon as you do that, they let you down. It's
down to 9. Has this changed since you typed it in?
I don't know. The green line page appears to have changed since I typed it in.
No, it's 9. Did I say 9.5 earlier? Maybe I just misread it.
But I think this is a closer game than that line. I understand that the 49ers are hot. They're cooking on gas right now. They are, those dominant playmakers that they have on offense are doing a really good job. Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't had a bad game in a while. He's had games where he's made some mistakes, but he hasn't played badly really since that start of the season where it was ugly and right up to the point where they threatened his job, essentially. From that moment on, he's played well.
I suppose.
Yeah, that moment. Like, it's almost like the Aaron Rodgers thing, right, where Jimmy G was just immediately inspired by the threat to his job dangling over him.
Now green line says 9.5. What's happening here?
I don't know. Whereas Matt Ryan has sort of, been Matt Ryan. This is an interesting game to me, and I think, the 49ers are a better team, but I like the Falcons to cover it.
Did we just push an update to green line?
This is what I'm saying. Everything's weird.
Bets. They just pushed an update in the middle of the show here. Well, you should probably get over there. I mean, I'm trying to find some of the stuff that I usually look at, but if you are an elite user over at PFF.com, go check out the new upgraded green line. Oh, the depth. Did they just push the depth charts into the? You get the lineups front and center here. You got the most common bets. Where are my ELO rankings is what I'm looking for. Oh, yeah, the power rank. There we go. They're just kind of off to the side. It's very widgety. You get some cool widgets in there.
This probably looks a lot better on your phone now.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. We're definitely pushing for more mobile stuff. But the power ranking of the Niners 9th and the Falcons 26th. That's why it's 9.5. And now it's 9.5, not 9. Where you going here, man?
I told you. Atlanta to cover.
All right. Give me the Niners. I don't like the Falcons on the road.
Okay. It's fine.
Any other good games here? This is the best remaining game. There's 2 pretty good games remaining here. I think Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears. We get some more Bears primetime. # blessed. The Justin Fields discourse will continue. He played all right the other night with his busted ribs. And this is the game. Why you signed Kirk Cousins. It's a big contract to go win on primetime.
This is why you signed Kirk Cousins? This game?
Yes. I say that every week.
Yeah. I don't know that it is, but all right. The The Justin Fields thing is interesting. Every week he's going to be interesting to watch just because, he's got a crazy amount of talent. He has by far the highest big-time throw rate of any of those rookies. He also has one of the lowest accuracy rates of any of those rookies, which is interesting because, the Justin Fields thing in college was that guy was absurdly accurate. And obviously you don't lose the ability to just hit a target between college and the NFL, unless you didn't practice with the NFL balls, right? Remember when Lamar Jackson couldn't throw for like the first few months of his career because he hadn't been practicing with NFL footballs? So I doubt that's the reason for Justin Fields suddenly becoming inaccurate. I suspect it's what happens when all of the things that you're comfortable with disappear. And now instead of just dropping back, looking at a guy hitting the target, now you have to think about, the offensive line's breaking down. What am I reading? Where am I looking? Like all these things. And all of a sudden, those are the things in your brain, not just the comfort of dropping back and hitting a target. So, but because of all those reasons, like inaccurate but high big-time throw rate, high ability to take off, make plays on the ground with his legs, he's a really interesting and fun player to watch. Like that is a recipe for entertainment. And then the flip side, you have Kirk Cousins, who is almost the opposite. Like just the Kirk Cousins baseline of dropping back, hitting a target, throwing the football in the right place is insanely high. But there's always still a little bit missing, here or there that sort of takes him away from being a truly great player. But the baseline is really fun to watch because that guy is able to drop back and just fire a ball and hit his receiver in the hands. And it's incredibly impressive seeing a guy that good at such a specific skill. So I think the two quarterbacks are like genuinely fascinating to watch in a game.
Yeah, I like the way you described Fields and accuracy because I think we always talk about accuracy and it seems like this binary skill, right? You can either throw the ball to a spot or you can't. But because it's football and there's moving targets, it's not like other sports where things don't move that I won't mention. If it is football where there's so many other variables, to throw an accurate pass, you do need to be mentally on point, as in knowing what you're seeing, knowing where you're going with the ball. Then you tie your footwork to your throw and all that stuff. So there is more to accuracy than just like the act of throwing. It's a lot of stuff that does lead up to that as well. And I think that's why we've seen Josh Allen improve it. He improved his ability to throw the ball, but he also improved the footwork. He improved decision making, knowing where he was going with the ball, and understanding of the system really helps accuracy as well. So those are those places you're talking about, like with Fields. Cousins was interesting last week because he had at least one turnover-worthy play. Had a pick. Was it pick six that brought the Steelers back into it, right? But he also had just a beautiful bomb to kind of slow down the Steelers' comeback in the second half. Cousins has thrown the ball extremely well this year, and even though him and Justin Jefferson have missed on a few connections, they were just missing the other day. And Cousins had missed him a few times back in that Niners game a few weeks ago. Justin Jefferson's just one of the most dangerous weapons in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So he will continue to be that. He's tough to cover. He will get open against man coverage. He's got a good feel for zone. And that's what I think always makes the Vikings the most dangerous, is you have the ability for this one receiver to take over and put points on the board, and Cousins can get the ball to him more often than not. So the other part of the Bears story that I think is underrated in this whole Matt Nagy thing and everything is their roster's just gotten worse. Their defense has gotten worse and worse and worse. Say what you want about Matt Nagy. I'm not going to go to great lengths to defend him, but the Bears haven't won 4 games just because Matt Nagy suddenly became a horrible coach. This offense has gotten worse. The defense especially has gotten worse, particularly when you go back to when they were the division winner in 2018. They won the division in 2018 with Mitchell Trubisky playing number 30 in the NFL type of quarterback, right? So the Bears just aren't good defensively. I don't think they're going to slow down this Minnesota offense.
They would desperately like to have Jason Peters in this game. I think if they don't have him, that's a real problem, even against a defensive line like Minnesota's that doesn't have the pass rush that they had at the start of the year. Jason Peters versus Tevin Coleman, presumably the rookie. Tevin Coleman? Tevin Jenkins. There you go.
If you put Tevin Coleman,
that would go badly, very badly. So Tevin Jenkins at left tackle versus Jason Peters, I think, is a material difference to the kind of day that Justin Fields is going to have. If they have to go with the rookie against even Minnesota's pass rush, I think that's going to be something that he's going to find it really difficult to overcome.
Where are you leaning in this one? I'm gonna go Minnesota covering the 3.5 here. I tweeted when they were up 27. Minnesota is obligated. It's in their contract to make this a one-score game.
That was the stupid thing about that game, is that like everybody had some variant of that tweet. Like I tweeted when they were up probably the same amount that like, oh, this is going to make the inevitable, like the Vikings getting this to be a one-score game from here would be an all-time piece of artwork. You know what I mean? And then they did.
It kind of was.
Everybody had one of those tweets. Like that's how the Vikings are, that even when up 27, absolutely stomping to death the Pittsburgh Steelers, the world was like, oh, how are they going to screw this up from here? And that was how.
Which is why me taking Minnesota by 3.5 feels crazy.
I want to make this contingent on Jason Peters. Can I do that?
Sure.
Okay. If Jason Peters plays, Chicago covers. If Jason Peters doesn't play, they don't.
You think the left tackle is that important?
I do. This left tackle.
Yeah.
I'm more to the point, this backup.
All right. So Chicago, put an asterisk in there, please.
There you go. I'll put it in my.
We got your notes.
Yeah.
Make sure our team knows that this is only if Jason Peters play. It's all contingent upon the 40-year-old left tackle is determining your pick.
Hey, he's not 40 yet.
He's our age. 39. Right. Jason, actually, he's like 2 weeks older than me or something. We're close. Wonder if he could throw 74.
Probably.
Oh, no. Is that a reference?
Yeah.
No, that's just a ball-throwing reference.
No, it's a reference.
All right, I want to call an audible. I want to go Seattle, Rams, and then we'll do all the 10-point spread games.
All the 10-point spread games.
Seattle Seahawks at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams favored by 4.5, coming off the great Monday Night Football performance. Matthew Stafford balling out. Can Seattle pull the upset here? Russ also looked much better last week. Yeah, it's in a dome. Yeah, it's against Houston, but made a bunch of those big-time throws. Missed a few, too, but made the big-time throws that have made Russ special.
Yeah, he looked a lot closer to being the old Russell Wilson that we've seen since the mallet finger. I'm curious, like, can Seattle figure out a game plan to stop Aaron Donald? Because they never do. Like, Donald always has one of his best games of the season against the Seahawks, chiefly because the Seahawks always have bad offensive linemen, right? So you might be able to hide them for some games that aren't against Aaron Donald, but the second you run up against him, bad offensive linemen just have nowhere to hide, and they're getting wrecked. So that's part of your issue. But we saw what happens just this past Monday night if you don't have some kind of game plan to stop Aaron Donald. If you don't have the guys to do it, or if you don't have the plan to do it, he can wreck your game on his own. So that's one big thing for Seattle. And then the other issue is, okay, it's not quite what it used to be, and it's a sort of a facsimile of the system that's trying to get by without, without sort of firmware support from the original. But like this Rams defense, in theory, still runs the system that has caused all these aggressive quarterbacks that thrive off the deep ball problems, of which Russell Wilson is one of them. So, can this Rams defense still keep him in check and force him to take the underneath stuff and force him to be more patient where the mistakes happen?
Yeah, the Rams were a massive issue for Russell Wilson last year. Remember, he was on pace to have one of the highest grades we've ever seen. He was going to throw 70 touchdowns and all that stuff. He faced the Rams 3 times in the second half last year. Didn't play well in any of them. Now, Russ also got hurt in the first matchup against the Rams, and he was on pace for a much better game. He had 5 big-time throws on 19 dropbacks, which is great, before he got hurt and Geno Smith came over and nearly came back and pulled off the upset in relief. So that's what we've seen. And the Rams don't do as good of a job of preventing the deep ball this year as they did last year, but that was where like Seattle needed answers, right? Was the quote-unquote easier stuff, the underneath stuff, the stuff I described the Saints doing really well at, right? Throwing, out-manning the defense, outflanking the defense with underneath stuff. Seattle's offense, again, a little big play driven, big play heavy. That's okay, but they're still finding their way as far as a lot of the other stuff goes. The Rams, the other piece here, we talked about the McVay second half of the year adjustments. There's only 2 weeks of evidence of good, right? One was Jacksonville, one was Arizona in a big game. Have they been back on track here, or is it just, hey, Stafford's just playing a cleaner brand of football, and if he does that, they're going to be fine?
Yeah.
Rams. That's just posing a hypothetical question or a rhetorical question even. So don't answer it, Sam. It's just rhetorical.
No, I wasn't planning on it.
Stafford had a 90 grade the other night. By the way, preseason Matthew Stafford takes are back on track here.
Of course.
They are back on track.
Yep. After
that 90 grade, he is now QB 10 in PFF grades. 10th overall, 81.4 grade. If he has a couple more decent games, he can get to that career high of 82.6, which is what we predict. I predicted an 80s grade. I predicted a career high and better production. Right now we're on point. That's where we are.
Well, the funny thing is, after that game, everybody's preseason takes are back on point. Like if you thought that Matthew Stafford is going to be MVP and the greatest quarterback ever, you're immediately back on the bandwagon after that game. And if you're of the, he's going to grade slightly better than usual, maybe put up much better numbers and be more or less like this is what we're dealing with, you're also back on track. So everybody wins after that.
So sometimes the mid-tier quarterback or the high mid-tier quarterback like a Stafford makes everybody wrong or makes everybody right. So just give it some time. Anyway, 4.5 in this one for the Rams. Is that too much with Seattle? They like to play their close games as well.
They do. I just don't know if they have enough to keep this close, given the Rams are a significantly better team.
Wait, is Ramsey out again?
Oh, look, these are the COVID people. That's a lot of them. OBJ as well. That's a lot of players.
That's right. OBJ just came down. Zach healthy?
You think Zach's going to play? I think that's unlikely.
He could be back up to John Wolford, QB3.
QB3.
Yeah.
The guy that doesn't dress and just sits there looking important with the blue tablet.
Jordan Fuller, starter. Darrell Henderson.
All right, I'm
players for the Rams.
I'm going to go with Russ, keeping it close. Rams win. Seahawks cover.
Yeah, I think Wilson's going to play better football down the stretch here, right? I think if Seattle hadn't taken this lull, maybe this spread is tighter. Russ is still Russ and capable of taking over games, so I'll take Seattle as well. And then we've got a bunch of some big spreads. I don't know how much we want to discuss here. Arizona Cardinals at the Detroit Lions. Poor Lions fans. Last year at this time, I used to tell Jets fans, hey, this is when Trevor Lawrence is playing. Lions fans, I don't even know what to...
Aiden Hutchinson?
Watch Aiden. And
he's not playing.
Aiden's good. He's very good. That doesn't turn a team around, though. It's the problem.
Yeah.
A defensive end doesn't turn a team around.
Also, they're not playing right now, so...
Yeah, there's nothing to watch.
Yeah.
So Arizona, coming off their loss, 13-point favorites in the Dome. Nuke Hopkins out for the rest of the regular season. Anything you're looking for in this particular one?
No, it feels like a kind of bounce-back game for Arizona, right? They're a little bit like Buffalo to me in that if you're a team that has, that is constructed in a certain way and is able to, deploy an Aaron Donald, that kind of thing, you can upset Arizona. If you're Detroit, you don't have those things, you can't. And the Cardinals against a team like that are just going to show that they're a much better side, kind of like the way when Buffalo, faced New Orleans, and it's like you're not really built to do what the Colts did or what the Patriots did. They just rolled, right? And they ran right over them. So this kind of feels like that, like potential, if you're Arizona, this is one of the first setbacks of the season. You could have some wobbles and you lose a bit of confidence, but this is like a proper get-right spot to get back on track and just, cruise.
Kyler Murray the other night, we mentioned the volatility there, 4 or 5 big-time throws, bunch of turnover-worthy plays, which we hadn't seen a ton of. I think it will be a little interesting to see. Like, they've played without DeAndre Hopkins before this year, and they're more equipped.
Kyler hasn't, though, right?
I don't know if
I think they coincided. I think they missed them both for the same weeks.
True. So that's one thing I want to see. The Arizona, like if this happened last year, I'd say, okay, this is big trouble.
Yeah.
Because of how much they relied on DeAndre Hopkins. They don't as much anymore with A.J. Green and with what Christian Kirk has done throughout the year and what Zach Ertz has been a really nice addition since they traded for him, and, of course, Rondale Moore. So want to see what this Arizona offense does Without DeAndre Hopkins, I think they are certainly equipped to do this better than ever. It's in a dome, so I think Kyler's going to throw the ball well. See if Jared Goff can have one of those he's untankable type of games. We haven't seen many of them from Goff. Like one game here and there. So 13 points. Arizona, by the way, also, they got that whole streak on the line. Undefeated on the road, winning by 10 plus. I think they do it again. They're going to cover the 13, though?
Yes.
All right, we keep picking a lot of the same teams. I'm going Arizona as well. Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants. Dallas favored by 10.5. A lot of fun stuff to look at here. We had a daily on Dak Prescott and his little bit of a slump that he's going through here. Our own guy Seth Galina had a whole thread on the good things that Dak Prescott did in the game the other day, and I think it's important to note, like when you're evaluating football players, even in a game where the guys don't have a great grade, like they could still do a lot of good stuff. It's just the bad stuff that Dak did, which was turnover-worthy plays and bad turnover-worthy plays, including a pick six in the fourth quarter that let Washington back in the game. Those they just weigh more. But I do think Dak's in a little bit of a slump, but when you break down the slump, it's 3, 4, 5, 6 plays a game, right? It's a handful of plays, so you can easily come out of that. I expect Dak to do that soon. And then with Dallas's defensive front with Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Randy Gregory, can't wait to watch those guys all play together a lot more down the stretch here.
Yeah, the hype for Micah Parsons starting to get out of control. He's now in MVP conversations.
Don't
apparently.
even bring it up. Don't even acknowledge
Just saying, it's bad. It's bad.
wrong.
You can't. This is the problem with analysis: is that you can never you try and be what's the most bold I can be here while still maintaining a shred of reality. It's like, okay, Micah Parsons is elevating himself past Rookie of the Year. Now he's into Defensive Player of the Year conversations. You're like, I think that's a pretty strong statement. All of a sudden, somebody comes out and is like, the dude's MVP. Like, come on. Like, no, he isn't. Like, you're taking it too far, and now you've just ruined the discourse for everybody else because nobody can talk seriously about Defensive Player of the Year anymore because you've moved everything over here.
Just moving those goalposts with ridiculous takes.
Yeah.
No, Micah Parsons is not the MVP.
No, I mean,
he
it's the same conversation we had with the TJ Watt thing, right? Is he a quarterback? No. Then no, he's not MVP. The end. Next.
Is he the best quarterback in the league? No. Yes, Micah Parsons has been fantastic this year. And again, like watching that trio, because Randy Gregory's rushing the passer the best he ever has in his career as well. DeMarcus Lawrence has always been, not always been good, but over the last 3 or 4 years been very, very good. So that feels like, man, that's a tough front. I continue to want to just see how Dan Quinn deploys those guys, especially in nickel and dime situations.
Yeah. Dallas has the most turnover-happy defense in the NFL. Obviously, the magnet that is Trayvon Diggs, but they've had a ton of other forced turnovers as well. Mike Glennon, who I would assume is still the starting quarterback at this point.
Sounds like the Giants, they're going to shut down Jones for the rest of the year?
Yeah, they don't seem to be able to know what exactly is wrong with his neck, at which point...
You don't want to mess with neck injuries.
Right. So if it's Mike Glennon again, he has one of the highest turnover-worthy play rates in the NFL with 8 on like 100 attempts so far. Like, it's pretty bad. So Mike Glennon out there heaving the ball in the general direction of receivers, just hoping for a miracle, feels like a recipe for more Trayvon Diggs interceptions.
We have Kadarius Toney on the COVID list. John Ross is out on the COVID list as well.
It's a real shame.
It is our list.
Yeah.
O'Shane Zimenez, Aaron Robinson. Yeah. I like Dallas because the Glennon factor. We may have actually seen the end of the Daniel Jones era.
It's possible. Yeah.
It is possible. New regime, a new front office, right? Potentially a new coach. Could be complete, turnover. In New York, we may have seen the end of Daniel Jones with the Giants so far. I don't know. But Mike Glennon, even getting the 10.5, yeah, I like Dallas in this one. Turnover prone. I like the way you broke it down. Plus that pass rush, man. How are the Giants going to block all those pass rushers?
Yep.
I just don't see it. So I think this could be a beatdown. Dak gets back on track and breaks out of his slump.
Like, the only thing that could stop them covering that number, I think, is if Dak Prescott does what he did last week, which is like randomly heave a pick six to somebody.
Dallas was ready to beat the football team by multiple scores.
Right.
And I don't see Dak making those types of bad decisions again to let them back in. Buffalo Bills favored by 10.5 over the Carolina Panthers at home. It's going to be about 25 degrees in Buffalo. Don't know what the wind is going to look like. Let's check out the wind. See if this affects anything. 11 miles an hour, so it shouldn't be
11, that's fine. That's not a problem.
That's not crazy.
This seems like the kind of game where, like, what the analysis that I gave for Arizona is the same kind of deal, right? Compared Arizona to Buffalo in the first place, this feels like a game where Buffalo might look amazing. The Panthers' offensive line is horrendous. They're not going to be able to physically dominate the Buffalo defense the way a couple of teams have in recent weeks. Generally speaking, the Panthers win with some speed on defense if they do, and on offense as well, with Christian McCaffrey, with DJ Moore, with Robbie Anderson. The Bills, generally speaking, beat inferior teams outside of Josh Allen's. When Josh Allen doesn't have to face Josh Allen, the Bills beat bad teams. As long as Josh Allen.
I mean, that's another great urban stat. He is undefeated against the AFC East. He beat the Bills and the Dolphins. And he has a Jets game coming up.
And on foreign soil.
So he's undefeated in foreign soil, undefeated in the AFC East. If the London Silly Nannies get added to the NFL and join the AFC East, could be Urban's next landing spot. I'm just saying he's got a history of beating AFC East teams.
I mean, you're unlikely to find too many other coaches that are undefeated in England.
And the Silly Nannies reference is only from Family Guy. I'm not making fun of anybody. It's a Family Guy reference.
I see.
We have already, by the way, not to go off track here, we never do that.
No.
We've gotten an email during the show here about my reference of the British Isles. Doesn't like that.
Well, one, you say it in a weird way, which doesn't help.
I typed it, though. I typed it out in the into the ether. I put it in Twitter.
Yeah. You also say it, though, like, right
That's
there.
fine, but like Daniel O'Keefe, who tweeted or emailed us here, he's not angry because I said it the wrong way. It's because I even referenced it. And I learned everything I know about European geography from you.
I mean, it's technically legit. It's just not usually a term people use.
That's why I do it. It's my level of humor.
This is why you're not the funny one.
Debatable. So you think Buffalo crushes them here too? We're going to take all the favorites.
I kind of think Buffalo is going to roll. The only it wouldn't take some sort of miraculous game from Cam Newton on the ground, QB power stuff to get this done. It sounds like the Panthers are still going to stick with this rotating quarterback crap, which, by the way, makes my multiple quarterback system thing earlier in the year prediction. I win. It wasn't the 49ers. It was the Panthers are doing it now with PJ and Cam.
Uninspiring.
PJ and Cam, doesn't that sound like some sort of ridiculous QB duo combination?
Like an 80s sitcom.
Yeah.
PJ and Cam.
PJ and Cam are not going to get it done against Buffalo's defense, even minus Tre'Davious White. The Bills are going to roll.
Give me Buffalo. Buffalo getting back on track here. Get right game for the Bills.
Yep.
Minus 10.5. Miami's 10-point favorites over the Jets. Jalen Waddle just went on the COVID list as well, so we don't get to see him.
And that's significant.
It is. He's been a huge part of, look, if Tua's going to throw the ball underneath a ton, a lot of it has gone to Jalen Waddle, and he's created some yards after the catch. Tua he's playing a good brand of football right now. Continues to get better and grading pretty well. I do want to see Miami open it up a little bit more. This might be the time against the Jets in this rematch here. And then, of course, Zach Wilson on the other side. He was the subject of a PFF NFL Daily. Is Zach Wilson cheeks?
Yeah, that was the question we got asked.
I'm funny.
I mean, now, to be fair, that's Austin's comment, not yours.
Yeah, but I had to deliver it.
You just repeated it.
I had to deliver it.
It's true. The delivery was solid.
Contextual.
So, go listen to that.
Are you saying yes, he is?
No, I'm saying
okay.
Go listen to that for the discussion on whether Zach Wilson is cheeks. But this game, this feels like if you're the Jets and you're sort of sitting there with a lot of not much good this year. Everything's kind of going south. You've got this real problem of, hey, our quarterback that we drafted number 2 overall looks like cheeks. What are we going to do here? What's the problem? On the other side, Miami should it feels like that's a teaching tape for the Jets. There's a lot wrong with Miami. They have this terrible offensive line, not just bad, but historically wretched. The Miami offensive line is one of the worst we have seen in 15 years worth of grading offensive lines. It is horrendous. So Miami are running 3 times more RPOs than the Jets, right? Tua it has one of the lowest average depths of target in the NFL. The ball is coming out of his hands much quicker. Like, Tua's not an amazing quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but they have created a system that makes him functional. And he's doing his part. Like, he's executing what they're asking him to execute, even at the expense of being ridiculed by, who was it? Old DB plays for last couple of weeks. Somebody was like, "Oh, I could do that. I used to play."
Tua?
Yeah, it's like I played high school quarterback.
Didn't
I could
Chris
throw it
Sims
2 yards to my
criticize?
left. No, Chris Sims said that Taysom Hill was a better quarterback than Tua, but
Because he had all the Tua folks.
I forget who the DB was that said that Logan Ryan, maybe. Does that sound right? That he could throw 3 yards to his left as well. But anyway, the point is,
Ouch.
the Dolphins have created an offense that makes Tua functional and is working. The Jets haven't done anything to help Zach Wilson, and they have a much better situation if you look at it. Their offensive line is significantly better. Receivers probably aren't as good, but it's not like the receivers are catastrophic to the point where you're like, yeah, this can't function here. I just think that, in scouting for this game, the Jets might have taken note of some of the things that Miami are doing and saying, you know what, we should actually fold all of this into our offense.
Yeah, I'm going to use my Derek Carr take and kind of flip it on its side, right? Like the Derek Carr thing that I say is find a way to make him throw the ball down the field. Find a way.
Stopping Zach Wilson.
No, not throw the ball down the field, but find the way to get the ball out of Zach Wilson's hands.
Okay.
Get him to throw the ball in rhythm more often, right?
Yeah.
The stat I used on the podcast is one of the highest times to throw, which is usually inflated by running around and scrambling, and Zach Wilson's not doing that. He's just holding the ball forever. He's holding the ball longer than any quarterback on average. Now, it's been a little bit better since he came back from injury, but the thing that Miami has said is, we can't block, therefore get the ball out of Tua's hands. It's also Tua's skill set to do that. Zach is more of a, you know how you talked about Tua adjusting to NFL open?
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I thought that was a fair point, right? He was coming out of Alabama where everybody was wide open and he had, an ocean to throw from in two. Ocean's not the best one, but Zach Wilson had massive pockets at BYU.
Yeah.
And
he never faced pressure, essentially.
Never faced pressure. He had immense room to step into. Now, he didn't have the best separation in the world with his receivers, and he got it to them, but he never had to operate from a pocket, right? He didn't have a sense of urgency at BYU. So the Jets, just like Tua had to learn how to throw guys open a little bit more, I think Zach Wilson needs to learn how to navigate. It's not even that the pockets are bad. Like you said, the pass blocking is good. They're 15th, despite the way the Jets have held the ball so long.
Yeah.
So the pass blocking is fine, but you still don't have that same massive pocket to work from as he would at BYU. So how do you get him to just throw with a little bit more sense of urgency, a little bit more in rhythm? And I think that's what the Jets' goal should be here over these last few weeks, getting the ball out of Zach Wilson's hands. Now, half the battle is having receivers who get open quickly, and Elijah Moore's done some good things, and Corey Davis is out for the season. He's not a great separator anyway. You have guys who are capable of separating. Elijah Moore, Jamison Crowder, Braxton Berrios. Those are quick separation type of guys. They have the people, I think, to make this work, assuming those guys aren't all on the COVID list too. I need to
They're not.
check. Good. Sometimes I say a name and I just cringe because I can't keep track of everybody. It's our job, but it's tough to keep track of everybody that's on the COVID list. Oh, Elijah Moore's on injured reserve. There we go.
Yeah, but not the COVID list.
But he could return. He is not on the COVID list. But more, they'd had a decent connection over the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I want to see there.
Yeah, the Jets are missing some pretty important players to that offense, which obviously is not helping the Zach Wilson thing. Elijah Moore on the IR, Corey Davis, Hall of Famer, real blow to the Hall of Fame career. Michael Carter, IR. They're missing a lot of players that would be pretty important to them functioning as an offense. Miami is not missing as many, but they're missing some important players as well. Waddle, Myles Gaskin, I think, is on the COVID list as well, though he's been on it for a while, so it's possible he can make it back, I think.
It's tough to keep track of right now.
Yeah, but ultimately I think Miami are just doing a much, much better job of scheming to help their young quarterback. And I think it's fair to say that Tua is way better at this point as well, having struggled through some issues. But despite their offensive line, I think they're a much better side right now. That being said, 10 points is a lot to cover for a team like Miami.
Yeah, that makes me kind of lean the Jets. The Jets' defense has just been atrocious, though.
Yeah.
Tua didn't have a ton of success against them a couple weeks ago, but they did have those couple big plays, right, where the Jets just give up these big plays where it's either a busted coverage or it's just this lull, and that's, I mean, why they've been torched defensively. I'm going to lean Jets here, though. I can't even – what is Green Line leaning here? I can't see. And then I don't know where to look yet in the new system.
I will also lean the Jets to cover.
I see. There's a little value play on the Jets.
I don't have faith
That's what they're saying.
I don't have faith for Miami to.
You and I are going to have the same record.
Open up that kind of gap.
We're going to have the same record this week, basically. There's only the Urban Bowl left?
Yeah.
By the way, last week in our picks, I always forget Thursday Night Football. I was 9-4 for the second straight week. You were 7-6 for the second straight week. How about that? Is that all 15 games once we hit this Texans-Jaguars game?
Just, this game, and then we're out.
The Jaguars were favored by 2.5 at one point. I see it's up to 4. Did this line move with the firing?
God, I hope so.
Is Vegas playing the firing bump there? The new coach?
The new coach bump?
The new coach bump.
Well, the new
Darrell
coach
Bell
bump
takes over.
The new coach bump or the urban left bump.
Yeah.
Whichever way you want to.
Either way, there's a couple things moving in Jacksonville's favor. They're favored by 4 over the Houston Texans. So you get a little Trevor Lawrence, Davis Mills matchup.
It really did, by the way. Like, this change happened overnight in the wee hours.
Interesting. Is that because of Darrell Bevel? Because Darrell Bevel, he was didn't he win in his first game as an interim coach last year for the Lions, and then he lost 4 straight? Can we get our crack research staff on that? I'm pretty sure we talked about this last year. Bevel gave him the 1 week bump. The Lions go and win, and then they lost their last 4.
I mean, I could buy the idea of the weight being lifted off their shoulders. We've already seen this team show up randomly and beat Buffalo. I mean, the Texans are pretty terrible. I could easily see them winning this game.
What do you? I mean, all I want to see is Trevor Lawrence development here.
This line's up to 5 now.
It's up to 5. Interesting.
Then, yeah, let's go.
The man in Vegas, really.
The man in Vegas
has some information.
The man in Vegas does not love Urban Meyer's tenure for the Jacksonville Jags.
Like, was he just not showing up for work at all, or maybe showing up too much for work? That's
the thing.
Do we see a completely different? Does Trevor Lawrence get the new coach bump? Like, Bevel's been running the offense this whole year.
So that's the thing, right? It's like you can't. If Urban Meyer was having that degree of influence in the offense, that seems. It's just difficult to see, like, all of the issues that have been there in terms of making Trevor Lawrence just a nothing player so far this season. Receivers running into each other, not in the right areas. Like, the whole thing has been catastrophic. But was that Urban? Because in theory, Darrell Bevel has been the offensive coordinator. He must have had a fairly significant part of that. That can't change overnight, right? Suddenly everybody's on the same page, running to the right place, and Trevor Lawrence is executing this thing like it's second nature.
It still doesn't make Laquan Treadwell not your number one option and all that stuff. 3 more players gone onto the COVID list for the football team here.
Cam
Curl. Yeah, since we've been reporting here. Cam Curl, the latest, biggest name. Tyler Lawson. Keith Ishmael, 2 centers.
Sweet.
So Washington's going to be down to like their 5th string center this year. Just move the game back.
Jags don't have anybody on the COVID list. It's good for them.
Well, I mean, that's the second best thing Urban Meyer did during his tenure.
COVID protocols.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have anybody on the COVID list, and he made a pay-per-view appearance.
Good for Urban.
Yeah, there we go. Good job. Kept those boys in line. So nobody wants to be around each other. So everyone's socially distanced. Anyway, I think we see a rejuvenated Trevor Lawrence. Monkey off his back. Rejuvenated Trevor. I'm calling a 5 big-time throw performance.
5 big-time throws.
He's going to hit every cover 2 shot against this Texans defense. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, I don't care how far the line moves. They're covering this thing. Jacksonville covering the 5. Let's call it. We're going to use 5 as our line for this one.
Yeah. Okay, the line keeps going up.
Josh Allen, breakout game. Is he still healthy? I hate late season injuries.
Yeah, all right. The Texans are going to keep it closer than 5.
Josh Allen's questionable. If he plays, though,
it's game over.
Huge game. For
Texans are going to keep it closer than 5.
All right. Tyrod, future backup and some other place next year. Poor
The
guy.
Davis Mills Show.
Davis Mills show. Davis Mills and Mike Glennon both playing football this week.
There's a lot of neck out there.
That's it for us. What a great show. I mean, this is probably the best one we've done since yesterday.
Best one today so far.
I think so. That's our Week 15 preview. Don't forget, thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to X-Chair. Thanks to DraftKings. Thanks to Manscaped, even though they're not on the docket this week. You know.
Just thanks to them anyway.
We still love those guys.
How about Manscaped?
How about Manscaped? And also thanks to everybody who has or will donate to the GoFundMe for the Kentucky Relief Project. We will be pushing that money to where it needs to go, and we'll be doing something fun on top of that.
Yeah, send us,
Try to
email us
get people
suggestions
moving.
because we still need to figure out what we want to do. So NFL Podcasts, singular, @pff.com. You'll find that email on our bio of the Twitter account as well, but we still need ideas for the thing we can do.
And then the other place where we could use some feedback, contact@pff.com. Let us know what you love about PFF, what you don't love about PFF, what you want to see more of. Contact@pff.com. This is more from like the subscription standpoint. What types of things in the subscription or on the website are you most interested in? Would you love to see? Because your feedback is going to go into the big wish list. Tell them that Steve and Sam sent you so we can kind of organize the wish list by podcast. And we'll see what our team comes up with for the next season here, next year. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll have the Urban Meyer PFF NFL Daily. If you're not subscribed to that, go do that as well. We need a whole checklist of what we need everybody to do here coming out of the show. But
We
thanks to
appreciate
everybody.
all the things you do.
We
by the way.
appreciate everybody. But, it's just, we're just trying to connect with everybody as much as possible. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you on Monday reviewing all of the Week 15 action.